All right, first off, what I did, I'm just going to, yeah, I can. I mean, I can project. I've got a theater background.
Okay.
Hello? Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. Basically what I did, and I'm just going to kind of describe what I did at the PCA this past March in Seattle. Presented a paper that's called The Mistaken Identity of a Barbarian, Conan, Hero or Anti-Hero. What I did is I took a look at traditional hero stories. And I went through that whole 2,000-year history. Then I took a look at where the anti-hero started in literature, which was around the late 1700s. Then I turned to Conan. And I said, okay, where does he fit in those two areas? So, but I started out by introducing the audience to Conan. Everybody knew who Conan was, but I don't know that they knew the background or his history. So I basically introduced him. He was first published in 1932, Phoenix on the Sword, Weird Tales. Wasn't just extremely popular when he was first introduced. He was voted second by the readers in the next issue. But as the stories, more of the stories became published, he became much more popular. And so he garnered a large, very strong audience as time went on. But once Howard died, Conan continued to live on. As we all know, we're experiencing it now. He lived on through magazines, in the media, on television, in film, the latest RPG on the Kickstarter, board games, and I'm sure I'm missing quite a few of those media. But through all of that media, he kept being called a hero. He was always referred to as a hero. We saw that in the presentation with the DeCamp, the Lancer volumes. They advertised it as the greatest hero. So that raised a whole bunch of questions with me, because when I read the stories, I didn't see Conan as a hero. I thought this was kind of interesting. So I asked myself, does he exhibit traditional heroic qualities like those in the traditional stories? I also asked, is Conan something other than a hero? And if so, what archetype fits him? So those were my basic questions that I actually worked on from there. Now, I turned to Joseph Campbell. Who's familiar with Joseph Campbell? Let me see a show of hands. And I know Joseph Campbell gets sometimes a bad rap, but if you like Star Wars, that's Joseph Campbell, essentially. Lucas was so influenced by him that the story is basically the monomyth. What Campbell did was Campbell examined from around 700 BCE with the Iliad all the way up to the Common Era, all these stories that were heroic stories, traditional hero tales. And he noticed something when he was reading and researching these, that they followed a specific pattern. And so basically what he did in his research, and I'm really narrowing this down to a toothpick, he saw the pattern and he said, okay, well, heroes have to exhibit these particular qualities. So, and I extrapolated it down to about 3 or 4 here. So I'm giving less than what Joseph Campbell was actually giving in his research. If you're interested, really turn to him. It's very interesting research. Campbell placed a strong emphasis on the journey, the actual journey, the call of the hero, the type of person it took to take that journey. Hero is someone who has given his or her life as a sacrifice to the people. So basically what the hero's doing is he's being called by, he or she is being called by the group of people to go on an adventure, a supernatural adventure. Typically the hero doesn't really want to do this. He's struggling against it, but finally decides he's going to go on the adventure, runs into all kinds of issues and problems that he has to overcome, and then learns a lesson from that and comes back and tells the people what exactly happened. This is a lesson I learned, this is good for you guys, and sometimes even brings back gold or monetary gain for these people. That is the monomyth in a very, very small nutshell. It's almost, I'm almost doing a disservice to Campbell by narrowing it down that much. But anyway, so I took those elements and I examined Conan in light of that, and then I turned to the other aspect of where the birth of the anti-hero began. There was a researcher that I uncovered in the 20th century. His name was Sean O'Phelan. From what I understand, he was a fairly popular writer. He was widely read, and he actually has a book called The Vanishing Hero, and he demonstrated that around 1782, with the story, The Dangerous Liaisons. You've probably seen the movie. It's based on a book in France. He noticed that there was a change in the protagonist of these particular stories. That's where it started. They didn't quite know what to think about this particular protagonist, though. However, the writers themselves were also changing the way they were presenting their main characters. And this was based on how they were viewing society, civilization, conventions, and things that they thought were taken or accepted blindly. So what he did was he thought this previous formula was between the hero and the villain, and now we're not seeing that so much. Now we're seeing this change. And from this change came the birth of the anti-hero. And this is where the shift in literature happened. So with the birth of the anti-hero, I noticed that there were various different aspects in the birth of the anti-hero. Sorry, probably should have used the overhead. First off, the shift in literature expressed the writer's distrust in social norms and social conventions like I mentioned a minute ago. You can start seeing where Howard is distrustful of civilization. This came out in the H.P. Lovecraft correspondence, Civilization versus Barbarian, things of that nature. The anti-hero also acts according to his or her own needs. So the protagonist is changing in this sense. Heroes don't typically do that. They're doing what they do for other people, self-sacrifice. The anti-hero also views society as filled with problems. So the focus now is on the problems. Not how we can fix the problems, but the problems themselves. Also, the anti-hero didn't care about societal approval. No big deal. They were autonomous, a law unto themselves. Are you starting to see here where this is coming out? And you read Conan and you're thinking, And they find no satisfaction in social structures or patterns in civilization. That is the essence of the anti-hero. So I took the hero, I took the anti-hero, and then I turned to Conan and said, okay, let's see where you stand between these two. Let me start out, though, and everybody knows this. I'm probably not going to tell anything different than what everybody knows already about Conan. Just about his character. First off, he was a thief at one time. He was also a pirate, a wanderer, so at times a mercenary. He actually declared he was better suited without the trappings of civilization. He had a type of nihilistic philosophy that life really doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. Grab it, make it your own, because there's really nothing that majorly significant in it, nothing pivotal that has much meaning. Acts according to his own needs, exacts vengeance when he sees fit to go and do so, lives by his own appetites. He's also a pariah, which is just an outcast, a wanderer. Now these things were part of his characteristic. I started, just like Joseph Campbell did, I turned to the Conan stories and read one right after the other out of the Del Rey 3-volume set and noticed all of these things that were just different from the traditional pattern for the traditional hero. But to prove the characteristics, let me just quote from some of the stories that prove what I just mentioned in that list. First off, from the Queen of the Black Coast, which most everybody in here has probably read, it demonstrates quite a bit his existential nihilistic philosophy. Belit actually asks Conan, but what of the worlds beyond the river of death? Conan's reply is, there is no hope here or hereafter in the cult, in the religion of my people. Conan emphasizes this when he says, let teachers and priests brood over questions of reality and illusion. I know this, if life is an illusion, then I am no less an illusion, and being thus, the illusion is real to me. I live, I burn with life, I love, I slay, I'm content. You get nihilism, you get self-serving appetite right here. This is pretty strong evidence for this. Some other quotes from different stories. Rogues in the House. Conan had none of the fear or reverence for authority that civilization instills in men. King or beggar, it was all one to him. This was dealing with his autonomy or views about civilization. From The Veil of Lost Women. Customs differ in various countries, but if a man is strong enough, he can enforce a few of his native customs anywhere, and no one ever called me a weakling. And then from the people of the Black Circle, what's going on in this particular story is he's just kidnapped a queen, and he's taking her to pretty much have his way with her. So as he's taking her, she declares to him, "But because I'm queen, I must consider my kingdom. Do not carry me away into some foreign country. Come back to Vindia with me." "Would you make me your king?" he asked sardonically. "Well, there are customs," she stammered, and he interrupted her with a hard laugh. "Yes, civilized customs that won't let you do as you wish." And then one or two last quotes here from Beyond the Black River. "The Cimmerian might have spent years among the great cities of the world, and he might have walked with the rulers of civilizations. He might even achieve his wild whim someday and rule as king of a civilized nation. Stranger things have happened. But he was no less a barbarian. He was concerned only with the naked fundamentals of life, the warm intimacies of small, kindly things, the sentiment of delicious trivialities that make up so much of civilized men's lives were meaningless to him." And then this last quote from the people of the Black Circle: "He made a savage, impatient gesture, shook the blood from his knife, and thrust it back into its scabbard, wiping his hands on his mail. 'I will collect your ransom in my own way, at my own time,' he said, 'and I will collect it in your palace. And I will come with 50,000 men to see that the scales are fair.'" There's some autonomy in there. I'm going to do this my way, whether you like it or not. So taking all these factors into consideration, this is the conclusion I came to. Conan is a character. Whenever Conan appears to be demonstrating loyalty, it is typically situational, based on the circumstances, not on a relationship with someone within the story. Remember, he doesn't like attachments to people. So he's not loyal due to a responsibility to a relationship with someone, and moreover, he usually has something to gain from that action. Next, Conan is being used by Robert E. Howard, I think, as an indictment against civilization or society. This is manifested in his correspondence with H.P. Lovecraft, of course, with the civilization versus barbarian debate. And then Conan mirrors the anti-hero's perception of society. In other words, it's a type of enemy. Society is seen as something that you can't trust. It's untrustworthy. And like an anti-hero, Conan is an outcast and a wanderer. And like the other characters in the stories actually point this out. For instance, from Red Nels or Beyond the Black River, these things are pointed out. Now, I know I'm swimming upstream here because I'm fighting against 40 years of history of him being called a hero. But if you actually go to the stories, it tends to bear out that that's just not the case. So all this considered, Conan is closer to being an anti-hero than he is a hero. And that's basically my paper that I presented at Seattle, Washington in a nutshell. Thank you.